Please open a satellite map and zoom out to an altitude of 10,000 meters. Look down upon our blue planet. In the heart of the Asian continent, you will see an incredible, winding green scar. This is not a masterpiece of natural craftsmanship, but a mark carved onto the Earth's surface by human will over the past half-century. This green belt was once, decades ago, a lifeless zone, a sea of yellow sand, declared uninhabitable by nature. Today, it stands as one of the most ambitious and controversial ecological transformation projects in human history, China's 3 North Shelter Belt program, or as the world has come to call it, the Green Great Wall. This is not merely a story of planting trees. It is a war, an all-out battle between human civilization and desertification, an epic overture composed in the depths of despair. Before we dive into the details, imagine this: a spring day in the late 20th century in Beijing. The sky is not blue nor gray, but a suffocating apocalyptic orange. The air reeks of dust, microscopic particles invade your nose and throat. Even tightly shut windows and doors can't keep it out. Visibility drops so low you can't see the building across the street. It's as if the city is trapped beneath a vast yellow dome. This isn't a scene from a disaster movie. It's a collective memory etched into the minds of tens of millions of Chinese people. A demon known as Sandstorm was charging southward from the Gobi Desert, again and again. Now return your gaze to that green belt on the satellite map. It is not merely composed of trees. It is a frontline, a promise, and a high-stakes ecological gamble, one that wagers the future of a nation. But what kind of crisis could provoke such a grand undertaking? And what kind of courage dares to defy the natural evolution of a planet? To understand the birth of the Green Great Wall, we must first confront its enemy, the desert. In China, this enemy has a more vivid, fearsome name: the Yellow Dragon. In the mid-20th century, during China's push for industrialization, northern forests were felled en masse, turned into fuel and lumber. Trees that had pinned the soil down for centuries, even millennia, fell in waves. The delicate ecological balance was violently shattered, and the Yellow Dragon was awakened. Without the shelter of vegetation, northern China faced unprecedented ecological collapse. The grasslands of Inner Mongolia visibly deteriorated, replaced by rolling dunes. The Gurban-Tungut and Taklamakan deserts, 2 world-class sand beasts, began advancing rapidly eastward and southward. Let's put these abstract numbers into perspective. Land degradation. At its peak, desertification was swallowing 3,600 square kilometers of land every year. That's roughly the size of New York's Central Park disappearing every hour, or an area larger than central Paris turning into wasteland each day. Economic collapse. This was not just an ecological disaster, but economic strangulation. Crop yields plummeted by over 40% due to frequent sandstorms. Direct economic losses reached $54 billion annually, enough to feed the entire African continent for a year. Survival crisis. In Beijing, sandstorm days surged from a dozen a year to over 50. These storms weren't merely bad weather, they carried pollutants and pathogens, triggering a 300% spike in respiratory diseases. Worse, they could ground international flights, paralyze transportation, and force millions indoors, waiting for the Yellow Dragon to retreat. In 1978, when Chinese leaders looked northward, they no longer saw vast territory, but a massive, festering wound. They realized this wasn't a negotiable crisis. It was a war for national survival. Without countermeasures, even the capital, Beijing, and the entire North China plain could fall under siege by the desert. So an audacious plan was born. A plan so bold, it still reads like science fiction. To build a 4,500-kilometer wall of trees across northern China to halt the desert's advance. An epic showdown between humanity and nature had officially begun. The 3 North Shelter Belt program may sound modest in name, but its scale is nothing short of mythical. Spatial scale. The total planned coverage area is 4.69 million square kilometers. To grasp this, consider, It's larger than the entire European Union, nearly the size of the Indian subcontinent. Imagine coordinating an ecological transformation from Portugal to Poland, from Sweden to Greece. That's the scale of this Green Great Wall. Its 4,500-kilometer length could stretch from Los Angeles to New York. Temporal scale: this isn't a 5 or 10-year plan. Initiated in 1978, it's expected to complete by 2050, a 72-year endeavor. A child born in Beijing in 1978 would live their entire life under the influence of this project. It's a promise across 3 generations. A grandfather plants a tree, and his grandson waters and guards it. Biological scale: since 1978, China has planted over 100 billion trees in this region. This number is almost philosophical in magnitude. Lined up 1 meter apart, they would circle the Earth more than 60 times. That's over 12 trees planted for every person on Earth. It's not just arithmetic. It's a living, breathing forest composed of countless green cells. At first, the approach was primitive, sheer manpower. Millions of soldiers, farmers, students, and workers headed to the desert with shovels and saplings. They pitched tents in the dust and launched a courageous charge. But passion alone was no match for nature. In arid regions receiving less than 200 mm of annual rainfall, akin to the Sahara, sapling survival rates often fell below 20%. For every 5 trees planted, 4 withered. Clearly, the war needed smarter weapons. If mass labor was the infantry, then technological innovation was the elite spearhead piercing the desert's heart. Chinese scientists realized they couldn't fight deserts with farming mindsets. They needed to become desert engineers. Revolutionary technologies emerged. Straw checkerboards and fish scale pits. You can't plant trees directly on mobile dunes. So they invented straw checkerboards, 1 times 1 squares of straw partially buried to stabilize sand by reducing wind speed. On slopes, they dug fish scale pits, crescent-shaped hollows that capture and retain precious rainfall for saplings. These simple physical tools raised survival rates from 20% to over 80%. Genetically engineered super trees. You can't plant willow trees from the south in the Gobi Desert. Over 85 desert-adapted species were developed. For example, a modified desert elm could send roots 80 meters deep, surviving on just 100 mm of rainfall. Others, like sea buckthorn and saxaul, tolerate saline soils and offer economic benefits. Aerial seeding with drones and aircraft. Manual planting couldn't keep up, so China began large-scale aerial seeding. Drones and planes now disperse seed pods wrapped in nutrient-rich soil along preset routes, reaching inaccessible terrain hundreds of times faster than manual labor. Technology turned the once impossible act of planting trees in deserts into an engineering problem, one that could be calculated and solved. After more than 40 years of effort, the Green Great Wall has stunned the world. Forest coverage. Northern China's forest cover rose from 5.05% in 1978 to 13.84% in 2024, translating to new forest land larger than all of Germany. Global impact. NASA confirmed that from 2000 to 2017, global leaf cover grew by 5%, with over 25% of that growth coming from China, thanks largely to this project. Fewer sandstorms. Beijing now endures fewer than 3 sandstorms a year, down from over 50. Beijing Blue has replaced the infamous Beijing Yellow. Yet every myth-scale project comes with enormous risks and controversy, and the Green Great Wall is no exception. Planting trees in ultra-arid areas is an ecological paradox. These so-called water pumps consume more water via transpiration than local rainfall can replenish. To keep them alive, groundwater, already scarce, must be extracted. In places like Minkin Oasis in Gansu, hailed as a desertification success story, groundwater depletion and lake shrinkage now threaten ecological reversal. Despite massive human effort, the desert's counterattacks have never ceased. In some areas, sand advances faster than trees grow. Officials admit that many trees are planted, die, and replanted in an endless tug-of-war with the dunes. These challenges show the Green Great Wall is not a permanent fix, but more like a giant laboratory where humanity tests, errs, learns, and evolves. This half-century planetary engineering experiment leaves us with profound questions. Where is the boundary between ambition and arrogance in our relationship with nature? As we reshape the Earth, must we first reshape our own understanding of development and survival? The war between forest and desert continues. Its outcome will not only shape northern China's fate, but may also define how humanity coexists with our only home, Earth.